through these dual lenses that give us clear access to reality. We see a church who, for all her challenges, serves the common good with extraordinary effectiveness and generosity. Think of the tremendous international relief work that our church accomplishes around the world. In the dioceses we serve, the church is the largest non-governmental source of educational, social, charitable, and healthcare services. And these are offered as an integral part of our mission, offered as an expression of our faith in the God who is love. In time of economic hardship, the services which the Catholic Church and other denominations provide are more crucial than ever. But it is becoming more and more difficult for us to deliver these services in a manner that respects the very faith that impels us to provide them. Indeed, Archbishop Dolan gave voice to what we collectively see. He said, "Never before have we faced this kind of challenge in our ability to engage in the public square as people of faith and as a service provider. If we do not act now," he said, "the consequence will be grave." Among the challenges we see is a pattern in culture and law to treat religion as merely a private matter between an individual and one's God. Instead of promoting toleration of differing religious views, some laws, some court decisions, some administrative regulations treat religion not as a contributor to our nation's morality, but as a divisive and a disruptive force better kept out of public life. Some invoke the so-called doctrine of separation of church and state to exclude the church from public policy, thus ignoring the historic role of churches in ending slavery, in securing religious rights, in securing civil rights, in promoting just labor practices, including the introduction of child labor laws. So while religion is indeed a personal matter, it's not a private matter. For there is no religious liberty if we are not free to express our faith in the public square, and if we are not free to act on that faith through our works of education, healthcare, and charity, just as there is no freedom of speech if one is free to say what he or she believes only privately, but not publicly, through the media, the arts, libraries, and schools. We also see that the reach of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment is being expanded so as to continually narrow the protections offered by the Free Exercise Clause, thus turning the First Amendment on its head. The Establishment Clause was meant to protect the Free Exercise Clause, not the other way around. The result has been that both individual citizens with strong religious convictions and religious institutions are less broadly accommodated and sometimes marginalized on the grounds that even minimal accommodation somehow constitutes the establishment of a particular religion in our land. For example, the conference has been defending against an ACLU lawsuit, claiming that Health and Human Services recently abandoned policy that allowed us to serve trafficking victims without also providing them abortion and contraception, a policy that respected our religious freedom, our freedom of exercise, actually violates the Establishment Clause. So let us make no mistake. Aggressive secularism is also a system of belief. In failing to accommodate people of faith and religious institutions, law and culture are establishing unreligion as the religion of the land and granting it the rights and protections that our founding fathers envisioned for citizens who are believers and for their churches and institutions. In addition, over time, the barriers preventing government from interfering in the internal life of religious groups have been lowered. This aids and abets the erosion of religious liberty, a liberty which is expressly recognized and protected by the First Amendment. And this happens by the imposition of court-mandated rights, which have no textual basis in the Constitution, like those that pertain to abortion or same-sex marriage. Refusal to endorse the taking of innocent human life or to redefine marriage is now portrayed as discriminatory. As a result, the freedom of religious entities to provide services according to their own lights, to defend publicly their teachings, or even to choose and manage their own personnel is coming under increased attack. This and more have led to dramatic and immediate threats to religious liberty across our land in various states, whether it is an Alabama law and court ruling that criminalize the Good Samaritan services which churches are providing to the undocumented, or a county clerk in New York State who faces legal action because she refuses to take part in same-sex marriages, or the 2009 attempt of some members of the Judiciary Committee in Connecticut to reorganize parishes in a manner utterly opposed to Catholic teaching and law, or the sad reality that many diocesan Catholic charities have had to withdraw from adoption and foster care services because of our fidelity to the Church's teaching on marriage. We see the problem at the federal level. Some federal agencies, absent legislative or judicial oversight, threaten religious freedom. As we know, the Department of Health and Human Services issued regulations that would mandate coverage of sterilization and contraception, including abortifacients, in all private health care plans. There was a religious exemption, and it was far too narrow, requiring Catholic employers to hire mainly Catholics, serve mainly Catholics, and exist mainly to inculcate religious values. All these conditions had to be met to qualify for the exemption. As Sister Carol Keehan noted, the exemption was so narrow that it barely covered the parish housekeeper. And there is no conscience protection for insurers or individuals with religious or moral objections to the mandate. Now, while there is a real possibility of a broader exemption, it remains to be seen whether it will indeed protect all religious organizations and the conscience rights of individuals and insurers. Contrary to conscience protections that are already a matter of law, Catholic Relief Services, and Migration and Refugee Services were told of a new condition for the renewal of their cooperative agreements, namely the provision of a full range of so-called reproductive services, a condition we hope and pray may soon be dropped. The Department of Justice has created additional problems. As you heard, it has attacked DOMA as an act of bias and prejudice akin to racism, thereby implying that churches which teach that marriage is between a man and a woman are guilty of bigotry. The Department of Justice has also argued before the Supreme